Coleman, can you tell us a little more about your history as an operator within the armed forces? How long your career was and what you actually did into deployments, etc.
My life in the military, I always say, started really with wrestling because that combatives background is what seasoned me to this type of environment. Then 13 years in special operations in the SEAL teams, 4 combat tours, probably 7 or 8 total type of deployments. But the 4 that I always think about are the ones that really delivered the most pressure when you're obviously in the garden spots around the country and you experience some sort of combat action, some worse than others. But that took me until the fall of 2011. And then I got out of the Navy in the fall of 2011.
And then from there, this is when we didn't meet at that point, but you moved into working with high level teams in other areas. And that's where we did meet in 2015, I think it was, our paths first crossed when we were both guest speakers for the Philadelphia Eagles during their preseason work. And at that point, you were transferring the knowledge and experience that you had in those high pressure environments to other people who worked in high pressure environments, arguably not as high pressure because bullets aren't flying, but it's all relative. And so from there, you were working at that point just as a consultant, and now it's crystallized into something more solid. Do you want to share a little more about the mission critical work that you do?
Yeah, all these, Patty, were, I guess, like some of our lives, it was just like accidents. As I mentioned, I got out of the Navy in the fall of 2011. And because I had the sporting background and the instructor background from being in the teams, both a basic training instructor in our Hell Week back in Coronado and then advanced training instructor in Virginia Beach. And I still stayed in touch with people in athletics. And through a friend, I was doing some work with like Division I college athletic teams, and I met some professional coaches. And without a background, even like yours, Patty, with some formal education, I was just reflecting on these experiences in these environments and sharing that with athletes. And obviously they can relate to it. And so at the same time, I was staying very close to our community, the mission critical teams community, through Dr. Preston Klein's research at the time, which is at Wharton. Now, but because that environment is such a collective of people, from astronauts to athletes and everybody in between, special operations firefighters, that deal in environments where your core decision making is done in 300 seconds or less, which is Preston's doctoral research. This kept pulling us into all of these environments, athletic or otherwise.
Yeah. Like you say, accidents happen along the way, but these were great accidents because I would hesitate to guess that I wouldn't know half as many people that are super relevant to what we do on this show, and also just that I've learned so much from. And the first time we met, I was like, this is really cool. I watched you tell a story about kicking doors in, and the football players were more into that than anything we saw over the whole training camp. But then afterwards, we kept in touch, and I circled back and I was talking to, I think it was you or maybe Preston, but either way, one of you said we're doing this mission critical team stuff. And so for those listeners who don't know what that actually refers to, I didn't either at the time. I was just like, oh, that's cool. What are you doing? And you described the audience, which you said it's astronauts, heart surgeons, fire department, all of the branches of the military. And you were like, hey, you should come along. And my response was, are you fucking kidding me? All I do is coach athletes, and I'd love to come, but it doesn't feel right. And then you went ahead and said, no. Here's why we think you should come, because this is what a mission critical team does. You spelled out the definition. And by the end of the definition, I'm like, holy shit, you're right. That is kind of what these guys do. Can you share? You do it much better than me, the definition of what a mission critical team is.
So just think about 4 to 12 members that solve rapidly emerging complex adaptive problem sets, complexity in the environment, meaning some crazy shit could happen and you couldn't have planned for it, right? That experience a thing called an immersion event. And think of a black hole, Patty, like there's an event horizon. And if you cross the event horizon, it's worse if you try to reverse than if you complete the process, where the consequences are catastrophic loss or death. Many people initially say, well, my job isn't a death. And when they think catastrophic loss has to be, the car blows up or you don't land the plane. No. Catastrophic loss for an athlete can be missing the field goal with 0 seconds on the clock in the Super Bowl, right? Doesn't matter what sport it is. And so the last point to keep in mind is the 4 to 12 members that experience immersion events, that work in complex environments that have a potential for catastrophic loss or death. In their core decision, throwing the football, kicking the soccer ball, combat action, landing an airplane on an aircraft carrier, you name it, right? Just go through the list. your core decision happens at the immersion event in 300 seconds or less. Meaning, it's 5 minutes, right? And the reason for the 300 seconds or less is because of the physiology and the neurobiology behind mission critical teams. Essentially, if we were to stop right now, Patty, and just count, we have about 300 seconds of oxygen in our brain to work the physiology of a mission critical problem. And that's why the research is sectioned off that way. So for a listener, if you have a job that requires a decision in 300 seconds or less, that once you cross an immersion event, it's worse to reverse yourself than to keep going. You're essentially an MCT member.
Right. And that for me was like an eye-opening, like kind of brain explosion event. If you think about the emoji with the brain exploding at the top, that's kind of what I would have pictured that day that I look like while you're telling me that, because I will sometimes refer when I'm sitting with an athlete or a coach to a sweaty palms moment, which is the anticipatory, this shit is about, anything could happen right now within reason. And I'm about to step off a threshold and I can't go back. Like the ref has the ball in his hands. He's about to throw it up for the tip-off. Tip-off is at 8 p.m. No, it's not stopping just because I feel nervous. It's not stopping because I didn't prepare properly. It's not stopping for me to calm down. It's just, this is going to happen. And it, for me, was the embodiment of that. I had an experience coming overseas from a different country, seeing the athletes here have absolute reverence for the military, and it's similar back home. And I couldn't work out why. And then your description gave me a little insight into that, is because it's very hard for pro athletes to find other people that go through what they do go through, both physiologically and psychologically. And there was one great example of they share that experience.